All right, welcome. So, in our sessions each week, we talk about the current astrology, what's going on. There's space to ask questions. If you know that certain things are going on in astrology, or at least you read it in the world and don't know what it means, this is a great space to ask questions, get some feedback. And what we really talk about are the general themes that are rising up for the week ahead. And ultimately, my intention is to give you something to do with it. So, to give perspective, and then maybe there's important inquiries for you to ask or certain practices that could be helpful for you. So, my job, as I see it, is to really support you through what's going on, not just educate you on it. So I just want to open it up to anybody that was here last week or anyone who has an astrology question that they would like to pose or ask. We'll spend like the first so minutes doing that, and if you want to either unmute yourself and use your voice, that's awesome, or type it into the chat. Either one. And then there's usually these like awkward moments where you might be thinking, should I ask that question? And the answer is yes. No? All right, well, I'll pepper in some time for questions before and then after. Um, Last week we talked about Mercury retrograde. We're in the midst of it. It started on the 30th of January and it goes until the 20th of February. So, overall, the um, general takeaway from this is that it's not necessarily a time to initiate new things, but it's a powerful time to reflect and think about what you might want to initiate. This is a time where new ideas can easily come through for many people, more inspiration, and the real kind of ticket to that and to gaining those benefits of Mercury retrograde that aren't always talked about is space, especially for this one this year. This is the first one of three, and it's happening in Aquarius. The word is space. Give yourself space. Keep your life simple. It's not like a doom prophecy in any way, but it's a really good thing to keep in mind when it comes to any time Mercury retrograde is going on, because we can really tap into a part of our mind that we don't always access when we're really busy, when we're stuck in like the monotony, the day to day, and the more transactional realm of our mind, like send email, like Instagram, do this. It's very transactional. When we are in Mercury retrograde, that transactional part of our mind can be a little bit skewed. And Mercury retrograde simply means that Mercury is closer to the Earth than it is at any other time in the year. So its influence is stronger. There's an optical illusion where Mercury's rotation will look like it's going backwards, hence retrograde. But the real power of it comes because Mercury is closer to the Earth. And in that, our minds, which are so deeply connected to Mercury, are going to be a little bit microwaved, so to speak. So our best use of our mind is often in the creativity and the imagination and the daydreaming. And so giving yourself sort of these 3 weeks or 2 weeks left for us now, like give yourself that reminder, because there's some hot, sparky, agitated astrology that's peppered in throughout this Mercury retrograde. That if we don't keep in the back of our minds that I'm supposed to be reflecting, I'm not necessarily supposed to take action right now, well, we're giving ourselves more time to process all that's already happened since last Mercury retrograde ended on the US election day, which was the 3rd of November. So from the US election day on the 3rd of November to January 30th, like, has enough happened in your life since then for you to process? Like, I think we could all take a 3-week vacation just to think about all that's happened, not even just in our own lives, just in like the newspaper. Um, so giving yourself some time to process is the name of the game, like overall. Any questions about Mercury retrograde? No, everyone's got it. Going, going, going. All right. Cool. I'm super available for questions all the time about astrology. It's like what I love talking about. So if you don't have a question now and you have one later, I got you. All right, so this week specifically, we have like in the background, we know it's Mercury retrograde. On the 11th, we have a new moon in Aquarius. So that's the resetting of the moon cycle. That is like new moon, fresh start. And that's going to run from the new moon in Aquarius on the 11th of January all the way until I think it's February 12th. I'll double check before the end of our session, but that's the Pisces new moon. And so, although we are already a couple of weeks into Aquarius season, the Aquarius moon cycle goes into Pisces season. If you're not super familiar with moon cycles, that's okay. I will like continuously throughout our time together layer in astrology so that you start to kind of understand the pattern and the movement of the different constellations. Do you guys who have been with me for a little bit feel like I do that, or that like Aquarius and then Pisces and then Aries? Okay, cool. So yeah, so we start this new cycle on Thursday, and then shameless plug if you want to do a new moon intention setting ceremony Wednesday the 10th at 7:30 with love. I'm going to be hosting a new moon in Aquarius circle and ceremony, so you'll get way more insight about what that new moon means on Wednesday if you want to jump into that. For tonight, I'm going to talk about everything else and then just little key bits about that new moon. So right now tonight, we are in the closing of the Capricorn moon cycle. So the moon entered Capricorn. Let me just double check. It just happened today. It is in Capricorn, so it's at 17 degrees of Capricorn. So it's halfway through the Capricorn cycle, which means that from today until that new moon on Wednesday when we meet, we are in the end of the last moon cycle. So that Capricorn new moon cycle was in mid-January, and it was conjunct Pluto. And so what that basically means is that this whole month, since mid-January until now, tomorrow, and Wednesday, we're closing out a cycle that was marked significantly by heaviness, by transformation, by change, by death and rebirth, and we're visiting that. So this whole month has had this marker of transformation, and the heavier word for transformation is trauma. When we go through something really, really, really intense and we aren't necessarily in that moment or at that time resourced to be able to fully be there for it, like you experience something intense, whether it's challenging and horrific or like epically amazing. If it's like a little bit too intense for where you're at, your body doesn't know necessarily what to do with it. So we'll get butterflies, we'll sweat, our memory will shut off. Has anyone had any of this happen to them ever in their life? Yeah. So that's trauma. That's transformation. That's a death cycle happening within us. And that's Pluto. That is the energy of Pluto. And for the last 12 years, we've had Pluto in Capricorn, and he's all the way at like 24 degrees now. So since 2008, he's just been slowly taking his time moving through Capricorn, which is one of the stronger signs of the zodiac in terms of like brute strength, in terms of boundaries and rules. And in a big way, Capricorn, it's representative of how we structure ourselves within society. So it's not necessarily who we are in society, but it is like the rules and the structures that we all adhere to. Some of us agree to those, and some of us are just born into the world and suddenly like these are the rules, right? And so during this Pluto cycle through over the last 12 years, we've had transformation and change and like this deep unearthing of all of the ways that we work and relate and are contractually connected to society. So like the housing market collapsed in like 2008, if you remember, the financial markets in 2008. That was like Pluto saying, I'm here, introduction to this archetype. And now we're at the end of it. And last year was like the most Capricorn year in modern astrology. And we had our whole society shift. And we are still in the midst of the shift. And so now, as we close out this Capricorn moon cycle before we enter into Aquarius, we could really think about like what determines what we trust. This Capricorn has a lot to do with trust. Capricorn, is anyone here Capricorn anything that you know of? No, maybe you are. So Capricorn as an archetype is known for its integrity. It's known to be trustworthy. Like if you wanted to date a Capricorn and uh, you wouldn't go about trying to like hit on a Capricorn by being like super flirtatious or sexy. You would actually be like, hey, do you want to come to my family picnic? Or like, I want to make you a part of my family. You would like go the friend route first because you need trust to really get in with the loyalty and integrity of Capricorn because they're going to support you for the rest of their life. And so we, through these last few days, we can think about what determines that which we trust. Like, how do you know you trust somebody? Yeah, like, I mean, do you feel a certain way? Do they make a certain gesture? And this is like across the board. We could think about this for our whole life. Like, what really establishes trust for me? And how do I affirm that through my own ways? And how do I maybe contradict that through the ways that I show up? And in that, there's this opportunity to complete the Capricorn moon cycle because the days leading up to a new moon are like potent letting go days. It's like the chute to the trash is open or something, and you can like kind of take some of those themes and work with them a little bit. And trust is a really big theme. As we kind of move towards Wednesday and Thursday, you could think like, what am I called to release? I've been thinking about this today is, you know, many of us carry old wounds, we carry old stories, and that's innate and natural for us to do as human beings. We're relational, we have incredibly powerful memories, and so we can easily carry wounds of the past. And when we're in Aquarius season, and this year is like, this is like the most Aquarius season of Aquarius seasons in at least like 70 years. We'll have so many planets in Aquarius over the next 2 weeks. And what can come from this is timeline jumping. Aquarians aren't bound to time. Aquarius isn't bound to time in the same way that Capricorn is. Capricorn is like the workday starts on Monday and it ends at 6 p.m. on Friday. You got to live within these boundaries. Aquarius, which is more rebellious, is much more like, I'm going to work a 3-hour work week or a 3-hour a day work day, and my priority is freedom, and I'm going to, rock the world as this rebel. And so the timeline jumping is our tendency at a time like this sometimes to go into the past or go into the future. And I'm noticing this a ton in myself and in people that I'm working with right now in the readings that I'm doing, is this tendency to live in excess of the future or deficit of the past. And so it can be this like, this happened to me wounding coming into a current relationship or into a current dynamic, and being kind of like masked on top of it. And so there's this old resentment that's coming through. And maybe that doesn't necessarily need to be there. Or it's this like very extreme and detailed going into the future and thinking maybe of all the different scenarios that could happen, or what is the optimal way that this could go. So it could be either like doomsday or like overly analyzing, perfectioning, worrying. Has anyone had either of these happen to them in the last couple of weeks? Yeah, it's so like on the surface. And so that timeline jumping of past and future is essentially a dissociation. It can easily be a trauma response because if I plan out the future so well and I try to think of every single scenario that could happen, and then I'm trying to basically create safety for myself. Like if I know how to respond in all these different scenarios, or I know how to control the circumstances to weave my path exactly this way, I'm trying to keep myself safe, right? And if I'm trying to go to the past and I'm trying to reconcile it or figure out exactly what it was that happened that made me so neurotic or so, frustrated or whatever it is, um, I'm also trying to keep myself safe. I'm trying to prevent a future repatterning. Um, and so what that can do is it brings the trauma forward. And that's what this moon cycle that we're completing right now is actually doing, and our choice of what to do with that information. Remember, Mercury retrograde's back here telling you not to necessarily react and instead look objectively if possible and understand, do I need to carry that old wound forward, right? Am I allowed to have the change I desire? I think many of us are engaged in self-transformation work of some sort, whether it's reading a book or a podcast or enrolling in a program. We're like, we want to grow. We're growth oriented, right? You're here, right? What's the astrology? Help me grow, or help me understand what's going on. So in this orientation of wanting to grow and wanting to become more whole or feel more safe or trust the world more, whatever it is that we might be really calling into our life, I wonder if we believe we're allowed that sometimes, or if we fully give ourselves that permission, or if we have some of us internalize the parent who says yes or no. And it doesn't have to be a judgment on your parents or my parents or anything, but thinking of like Capricorn being the authoritarian who sets the rules. And here we are, this teacher of trauma, dredging up maybe the ways that we've lived by rules that don't make sense for many of us, or define us in ways that aren't as authentic to who we know ourselves to be or who we've seen ourselves to be, even if just in glimpses or memories of our childhood. And so as we grow into adults, those authoritarian voices of yes or no who decided once upon a time become easily internalized. And then we're telling ourselves through our actions that we don't want something that we truly actually do want. Or we don't, we somehow on some unconscious level think we don't deserve the love that's standing right in front of us. Right. And so we can easily find ourselves down rabbit holes, playing in timelines, and bringing trauma into places where maybe we have done the work and we have shown up and, reconciled it, but we haven't yet given ourselves permission to let it go. Like, you'll survive without this. And so we can maybe play with some of that in this letting go over the next couple of days before that new moon lands on Thursday morning. All right, I'm going to answer the question that just came through. I'm glad you feel seen, Lori. I see you. I'm going to play with my funny ring lights are so funny. Does anyone have a ring light? Yeah, they're like epic, but also like all of a sudden I'm very white and very blue. You can play with all of the colors. It's funny. Um, anyway, I digress. Okay, so Kat asked, if the moon is currently in the same cycle as your birth moon cycle, does that somehow affect you less or more? Hi, Capricorn Moon Cat. I'm a Capricorn Moon too. Yes, so if you are a Capricorn Moon or Sun or Ascendant for this moon cycle, it can be, this one could have been more powerful for you because it's the completion of your lunar cycle. So that last new moon, whether or not you were born on the Capricorn new moon, that last new moon initiated like the end of a yearly cycle of the moon returning back to our natal placement. And so if you know the house that your moon was in, or we can talk about it afterwards, that area of your life, this could be a really beautiful time for you to close a chapter on something within that realm, or even just in your overall general life. Where have you really stepped through a portal of transformation, particularly over probably like the last, this is going to be a big range, 3 to 12 years. um, and you're still like going through, we're still going through a transformation here because Pluto will be in the sign of Capricorn until 2024. So it's still finishing up its destruction of our modern society, which again is not a doomsday prophecy, but just a perspective on the shift. And really, let's keep in mind that there's a lot of systems that aren't working for a lot of people. And if we're studying astrology, we are studying evolution and we're studying activism and we're studying the movement of society forward. And progressiveness is not necessarily political, or is not necessarily binary, put into like, you know, this club or this club and neither in between. Progress happens through both joy and birth and death and grief and change. And so in order to really, from my perspective, live fully and wholly, we have to recognize that we are all of that and we will always go through that. And that is cycle of life, and of the pieces of life. And so this is the closing, this is like the death portal of the Capricorn season. And what do we embrace when we move through that, when we let go? Well, we welcome a bigger picture. And what Aquarius represents as we move this week into the Aquarius new moon cycle, or moon cycle, is not the structures that bind society, but the way that society organizes and the way that society structures itself. So it's a look into the ways that we connect as community and as people and as groups, right? Like right now, we're a group. If we participate in classes and we're members of Love Yoga, that's a group. If we love following astrologers on Instagram, that's a thing. If we love American politics or not, that's a thing. These are all ways that we organize as people. And so we might not be privy or have insight into how every single group is communicating or what their beliefs are, but we recognize that human beings are relational and we organize not just in twos, but in more. And so this is a moon cycle that's really about how we come together as people. And that is the overarching theme of 2021 and into 2022, is to understand that the people got to come together, right? And they will. And there are ways that we will come together in powerful, epic, hugely exciting ways. And there are ways we'll be very, very challenged by how groups of people come together. And that's also how society moves forward, right? Through organizing and through revolutionizing. And so the question to ask as we kind of move through, again, the end of the Capricorn cycle into this very Aquarian time, which we've already been tasting since January, is can we accept that there's a bigger picture happening there's bigger transformation and change happening in society and to our world than we can necessarily see. And then what role do we as individuals play in that change that we might wish, right? There's that like quote, I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt. I remember putting this into like this speech I had to write in third grade. It was like, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said that. Um, and that's kind of the little like gem that Aquarius, I think if Aquarius had like two emblems or two like taglines, it would either be live free or die trying, which is the state quote of New Hampshire, or be the change you wish to see in the world. And maybe it's both. And so you want to think over this week as so much is happening in Aquarius. What unique qualities do I have? Do you have that you can express that are ready to come out? And what might, as a result of recognizing that, you realize needs to kind of shift and reorganize to let that part free? Because Aquarius's ultimate is freedom. And so if there are parts of us that are bound by, again, like timeline jumping, worry, fear, doubt, insecurity, all of it, this is a beautiful time to really be honest with ourselves about it. Not to shame ourselves or judge ourselves like, oh, I'll never get over it, but to really consider, have I allowed myself to fully see this? And have I allowed myself to, or have I permitted myself to let this go? Is that making sense? Yeah, cool. Jessica asks, is the moon the last planet moving into Aquarius these last few weeks? What's the significance of that? And so many planets leaving Capricorn for Aquarius around the same time. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes, and this sometimes can be helpful. Did people find it helpful last week when I shared the chart and just like gave a visual? Maybe. I'm just looking at you, Lisa and Kat. Okay, so this is what the sky looks like right now. Okay, I don't expect that this necessarily makes that much sense at all. So if you're like, what? Again, I layer in, so just keep coming back. In the middle of the circle, you could consider that you. I have Los Angeles as the center because we're based here in LA. But it's the center of your universe, our universe. And here we have Aquarius. You can tell it's Aquarius because almost every major planet is there right now. And so we have Saturn, who arrived on the 21st or the 20th of December. Maybe Christina could confirm that. You don't have to. Venus arrived not so long ago. She moves fast. She's already past Saturn at 9 degrees. Then we have Jupiter, who arrived close to like the 20th of December. Mercury, who is in red. He wears red when he retrogrades. And then the sun in Aquarius at 20 degrees. So that means the moon, which is in Capricorn right now, will move forward. And just watch. So now the moon has entered Aquarius, and here we are tomorrow at 9 p.m. The moon is at 2 degrees in Aquarius. So that means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets in Aquarius right now. That hasn't really happened, I think, since like 1952. So it's kind of a big deal. We had all the movements kind of moving out of Capricorn. Well, obviously, we had the sun move out last month or just a couple of weeks ago. But before that, we had, let me answer your question a little more clearly, Jess. So as slower planets move out of a sign, slower planets would be like Saturn. Jupiter is probably the fastest slowing planet. Then we have Saturn, we have Pluto, we have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, right? So Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. These guys sit in certain areas for a pretty long time. Jupiter is the fastest, it's a year. Saturn's 2.5 years. Then we're getting up towards like 13 years, 20 years, longer and longer periods of time. And so these faster moving planets moving into Aquarius spark Saturn, then they spark Jupiter. And as they do that, they're really kind of like poking at the transformation that the slower planet is forcing or exerting into this specific area. So all of the movement from Capricorn into Aquarius at varying times from a couple months ago to literally tomorrow is really, again, it's a movement of our value system from that idea of structure and hierarchy. In many ways, Capricorn represents the system of the patriarchy. And so it's this movement away from seeing things as a hierarchy, as me versus you, as attainment and achievement, into Aquarius, which is about, again, how we organize as people. What brings us together? What do we collectively care about? What are we willing to build and fight for and create? And so it's a shift yearly and now in like a much bigger cycle from these are the steps that I need to take to achieve what they tell me I need to achieve within the given system that exists, to screw all that. I am infinitely creative. I am responsible for my contribution to the world. I don't do that alone. Many are responsible for that, but I play a big role in that. And so, what makes me unique? And what do I desire? And who's with me? And who are the people that believe this too? And how can we grow together without thinking we're better than anyone else or excluding other people, right? And that is sort of like overarching big themes of like an era that we're moving into. And on the smaller level, it's a time of like, as simple as my New Year's resolution is I'm going to achieve all these things. That can be very Capricorn, and that happens during Capricorn season. Into it's February, and I love everyone, and I'm going to write a Valentine's Day love letter to everyone that I care about. That is like two different ways of thinking about Capricorn, which is like, what do I get out of it? How can I lose 25 pounds and make $1 million this year? To I love everybody and everybody gets a carnation and a Valentine and let's eat candy and it's cold and it's winter and let's connect with each other. So it's a different type of energy. Does that make sense? It's like very much moving from a hierarchy to a society. And this is how society is shaped. It's always we have to have the structure, and then we wonder how do we put the people in the structure, and then the people undoubtedly revolt, and a new structure is built. That's how we see society moving in my most simplistic Monday night explanation. So just to recap, before we chill out, zone out, and go into this Yoga Nidra, I'm really excited to share. Do we need to carry our old wounds, right? Have I given myself permission, real, true permission, to drop the story? Maybe, like me, I have like 10,000 times, but I'm still learning because we're all still learning. That's what a cycle is. But we can continue to give ourselves permission to come back to the present, right? Noticing when we're future tripping or past tripping and come back. Stay in the body. The second question, what determines that which we trust? Like, how do I feel trust in my bones? And that's the exploration. It's not as simple as, we'll go into this in our Yoga Nidra practice, but trust is built. Understanding how we feel trust in the body is something that every time you notice yourself in that, like, oh, I feel so safe right now, memorize it in your body. Memorize what that feels like and connect it to your mind. And then the last question is, what unique qualities do I have that I can express? Like, what makes me the rocking, badass, unique person that I am? And I'm talking to every single person because we're all like superhero, psychic billionaires. It's there. But you might not want to be a superhero psychic billionaire. You want to be something else. And so let's find that, right? um, and so with that final piece is, what are you called to release? And so I invite you to kind of play in that field over the next couple of days as we move into that new moon, because the potency of the intention with the new moon is magnified by the potency of the release at the end of the cycle before it. So if you are strongly Capricorn, this is, and you could put a little star next to this one too. All right. Any questions before we just totally chill out and let your brain like relax? All right, cool. So let's jump into, well, let's ease into Yoga Nidra. We're going to lay down for this one, but I always give the option that if you easily fall asleep and you don't want to, you can sit for Yoga Nidra also, though you might knock your head forward as you fall asleep sitting up. Um, you are welcome to keep your camera on or turn it off. My eyes are mostly closed, so whatever makes you feel safe. But set yourself up in a comfortable way. Cozy yourself a little bit. Blankets, pillows, bolsters are awesome tools. And just see what you might need to do to welcome yourself into an experience that is really intended to drop you out of that transactional mind and tune you in to a more dreamlike experience. Or sometimes I think of it as like putting the fuzz on the sides of the brain a little bit. So open yourself up for that. A couple of things that can be helpful if it's not so easy for you to chill out is to kind of notice what in your space makes you feel safe. You can recreate the room that you're in inside of your mind, or create a new world that feels even better than the world that you're in. Make yourself warm. A little weight on the body can be soothing. If you're already laying down, take a few deep breaths just to feel that with each exhale, you become just the slightest bit heavier. And in that heaviness, you connect bit by bit, little by little, more with the earth. And as we are in this closing of the Capricorn moon cycle, the earth is our greatest teacher. And that might be true always. It's particularly true tonight. And so in your release into the earth, notice your body expand, your bones returning home. And just take a moment to observe the pace and the velocity of your mind space. You don't need to change your mind or your thought patterns if they are moving at a fast pace or a slow pace. You're just collecting information. And do a similar action with the space of your heart and your emotions, and just kind of notice what is present at the surface for you emotionally. And doing your best to release or soften any story that is there. You're just noticing. And with curiosity is an assumption that there is no need for judgment. And then go ahead and, like a feather wafting from the heart down to the bottom bowl of the belly, see if you can just bring your awareness down to your belly or your womb or your pelvis. And notice what might arise as you do that. It's possible this can be a comfortable or uncomfortable experience to be in this part of the body. Is it possible for you to just breathe with yourself here? And see if you can find the slightest bit more softness. Beautiful. And then allow your breaths to take on a really subtle flutter. Gentle, easy breaths, not much force, no control. If you can imagine that your breath was like really outside on the most sweet, perfect spring day, how would you breathe? And just notice if you feel a little bit more soothed or a little bit more settled than when you first laid down. So give yourself a little bit of a checkpoint or a goalpost. And then our last little thing before we dive into our nidra, take a really deep full breath in and see if you can anchor that fullness of breath deep, deep into that belly, that pelvis, womb. And then if you haven't already, let your exhale be sort of aggravated or cathartic and full. And there's an audible, honest release there. Beautiful. And then go back to that flutter, that natural breath. And as we begin the practice of Yoga Nidra, I bring to your attention an opportunity to set an intention for yourself. What is wanting to be expressed through you right now? What unique qualities do you have that you wish could more fully live in the light? And if neither of these questions resonate with you in any way, that's totally fine. You might instead consider using a phrase for our practice. I am unique. You might consider any other wound or a deep dream or vision that you have for yourself, so we can go in all directions here. You might consider where you are healing in your life or what you wish to bring to life. And you can call it to your mind with a simple phrase like the one I mentioned, I am unique. It might be, I am hilarious. I am a visionary. I am healed. I am in love. Do your best to bring some inner excitement to whatever feels alive for you, whatever desire wishes to shoot to life right now. And with that enthusiasm, let it kind of disperse itself and feed every single cell in your body with excitement, with potential. And then we'll move through that body with our minds, with sound. And so every time you hear a different body part called out by this voice, consider your mind touching each part with presence and compassion. Wherever in your body your consciousness resides, see if you can bring it to your heart. And just let your awareness dance upon your heart for a moment. And then from your heart, move your consciousness to the space between your eyebrows. And like your attention touches that point, become aware of it. And then go back to your heart. And so every time as you move, we come back to the heart as the center point, the home base. And each time you're given the opportunity to familiarize yourself with the feeling of consciousness making home in heart. A heart, brow center, heart. And then move back to the brow center and down to the right eye and cheek, and feel the whole right side of your body, or the whole right side of your face rather. Good, and then come back to your heart. And then from your heart, move to your right shoulder and all the way down your right arm to the fingertips of your right hand. Then travel back up the arm to the heart. And then from the heart, journey down the whole right side body to the right hip. And then go back to your heart. Continue down from your heart to your right hip, and then all the way down your right leg to the tips of the toes on your right foot. And as you come back to your heart, feel your whole right side with it. Everything from the heart to the right, to the very outer edges of skin, of body. In your journey back to the heart now, become aware of your whole left leg and travel all the way down to the toes on the right foot, on the left foot. And so feel your whole left leg from tips of toes to hip. And then make your way back to your heart. And then from your heart, journey over to your left hip and feel your whole left hip, your left side body, all the way up to your heart, the whole left torso. And from your heart, move out to your left shoulder and all the way from your left shoulder to the tips of the fingers on your left hand. And then from the tips of your fingers on your left hand, all the way back up your heart, all the way back up your arm to your heart. And then from your heart up to the left side of your neck, your left cheek, your left eye, the whole left side of your face. And then coming back to the heart now, feel your whole left side, the whole left side of your body. And as you come fully into your heart now, everything is alive, the whole right side, the whole left side. And these center points along the channel, your brow center, your throat, the center of your heart and your chest. The powerful space of the abdomen, the pelvis and tailbone, and then by extension, both of your feet. Your whole body is connected to this center organ of the heart. And as you come to acclimate back here at home in the heart, can you continue to feel everything in extension to it? Like little rays of a sunbeam expanding out in every dimension, in every direction, and touching upon the outer shores of your body, a warmth, the warmth of awareness. And notice yourself here in this body enclosed by a sheath of safety. Every piece and part of this physical body is literally working. Its purpose is your life, is your being. This whole universe is occurring around your heart, and you're there. Notice the simple transfer of breath now. And the way that the breath you bring in and out of your body fans all of these processes and helps give them life. And see if as you breathe, you can watch your breath carry out its genius function of supporting the movement of blood and life from your heart to every peripheral system and function of your body. And with every breath that transfers, a healing dose of fresh excitement and unique transformation is distributed out. And then you might feel that as life moving through your body. You could see it maybe as sparkles being dispersed. Or you might simply know that in this moment you are sustained. And that you're safe in this beautiful palace of your heart. And so you are invited to notice now, what does it feel like to believe? To believe in yourself. You don't have to believe in yourself. The question is, how does it feel when you believe? Should the mind try to search for the answer, all you got to do is come back to the breath. Now, release the question. And a new question is, what makes you not believe? How do you know when something is not believable? Does anything change in what you feel? And let that question go. Going a little bit further, what does it feel like to trust? To trust it's working. To trust yourself or another. Now you can let that question go. This next one is, what does it feel like to not trust, to be in mistrust, to be suspicious or doubtful? Now, let that question go. Consider that it is now the most perfect day you've ever imagined yourself to have ever in your life. And you feel like you just have to think of something and it appears and everything is moving forward. Ease in everything you do. You have no doubt in your mind that you are whole, that you are in exactly the right place, at the right time, always. Life is in your favor right now. What does that feel like? Perhaps observing a very subtle change as you step into your flow, into your zone of genius. And in this perfect world, what appears in front of you is a spaceship. And it's right there as if it were all yours. There's somebody holding the door open for you, saying, "Come on, get in." And you trust. And you step into the spaceship and the door closes. And from the utopian palace of your heart, you shoot straight up. And you land this spaceship right at your third eyebrow center. And as the door opens, what is in front of you but literally everything you've ever dreamed of? Not just the things that you wish you had, but the whole world is exactly as you imagine it needs to be. Perhaps people are working together. There's peace. There's stability. There's mutual aid and mutual care. Keep looking out at your world and filling in your pieces and seeing all that could be there. You see someone you love dearly. You see the exact path of success that you know is available to you. You see your dream house, dream car, dream relationships. An abundance of sustainable, nourishing food, your favorite treats. Literally everything is there. And you see yourself. You see yourself as the human that you are growing to be, who is ready to receive all of this. You are them. How do you stand? How do you look out at the world? What is one thing that you notice most about this new world? A little gem. And just a little question to put out into the universe. What makes me uniquely capable of living and contributing to this beautiful world. And let that question float in the ethers. You're allowed to take one thing from this future world. Maybe it's that insight. Maybe it's a snapshot picture in your mind's eye. Maybe a little token. You're ushered back into the spaceship. And it, rather than traveling up, this time travels down and drops you right back off in your heart. Back to the familiar home that truly holds everything you need now. The spaceship dissolves, and you're back to feeling and noticing the symphony of breath exchanged through your lungs, and carrying wisdom and insight, compassion and faith to every cell of your body. Your home, and you are whole. You are seen and you are safe. And allow the way that your breath moves through your body and fans life through your cells to reconnect you to the life that extends from your heart all the way out to your body. Letting the witnessing of your breath bring you into a felt connection to your fingers and your toes, the soles of your feet and the crown of your head and everything in between. And here you are in your spaceship, in your vessel. Welcome to your new world. We now close the practice of Yoga Nidra. But the listening and the awareness never ceases. So even as you begin to move your body, be curious in how that happens, how the breath initiates and transforms, and how the mind processes what you feel and experience. You are always welcome to close your practice here, lying down and taking your own time. If you feel like completing the practice more formally in a seat, take your time to roll yourself over, wake yourself up, stretch yourself up, and then meet yourself in a seat. And as we close, I want to thank you for joining and encourage you that over this week that we have ahead to embrace the timeline jumping that's possible. However, to embrace it in a place of curiosity. So notice where you are given access to windows of the past and windows of the future. And take note. Give yourself a lot of space and care, and really use this time, should you choose to, as one of releasing what has arisen in the last cycle in order to really use this powerful transformation of an old cycle into a new cycle as one that really gives you permission to move forward, if that makes sense. So I hope I see you on Wednesday at 7:30 for the new moon circle. And if you're interested in going a little bit further with astrology, these weekly sessions are like for me, like such great bite-sized pieces and ways to learn. But I do a longer 1 week kind of more immersion each month, and we focus on different themes. And this coming month, starting on the 21st, we're focusing on routine and health and all of the aspects in astrology that really relate to staying healthy, finding an authentic routine. Like instead of feeling like continuously mad at yourself that you don't wake up at 6 a.m. to meditate, and then realizing that like you're totally supposed to be free and actually do something fiery, and you're supposed to watercolor for your spiritual practice. Like we're focusing on you and your chart and how you can really understand like this great amount of information and then what to do with it. So that's on the 21st of February, and it's 2 sessions over a week with community surrounding it. And basically, I'm like your private astrologer for a whole week, and we have chats like this. And we just focus on this month health and what that means from a spiritual perspective, and then also in like the nuts and bolts of it. So if you're interested in learning more about that, my name is Julian Elizabeth. I know a lot of you, and this is my Instagram, so you can DM me there. And that's my name everywhere, website, email, all the things. If you have any questions, I can hang out for a little bit. I'd love to. And I just appreciate you. So thank you for coming and learning with me. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Carolyn.
Julian, I